Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. And man, do I have a great show for y'all tonight. We have my very good friend, Jimmy Paine, here in the studio tonight. And we also have a special co-host tonight. We have Melissa Downard here with us as well. And you guys will remember Melissa from the last time we had Jimmy on. James Reek joined us, and Melissa was with James. So you guys will remember Melissa from that show about werewolves at Area 51. And tonight we are discussing the real war lab, as Jimmy calls it, based on the movie. Okay, sometimes these movies are based on real stuff, y'all. But the Island of Dr. Moreau. Okay, the 1990s version of that movie. Jimmy has some firsthand knowledge of this, and we're going to hear all about it tonight. We're even going to get a history lesson on Vietnam as well before we get into the labs where they were conducting experiments and creating human-animal hybrids. All right, something that we have suspected is still going on to this day, and it might actually connect some dots tonight. We are really good at connecting dots, and Jimmy's going to help us with that tonight, with a lot of history behind where it all started and where it's going. So y'all buckle up, get your popcorn tonight. We're in for a wonderful treat. And I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you to all my moderators and all my channel members for being here tonight, and all my Patreon members as well. We did have a remote viewing show yesterday with Barry Littleton. And so all my data for those targets we did yesterday on UFOs and those interesting Dogu figures out of Japan, those are all in my Patreon. And we just did a switcheroo this week. Remote viewing is usually tonight, but we had Jimmy coming on, and this is a very important show. So thank you to all my Patreon members as well. All right, if you guys would like to check out my calendar of events and get my social media links and stuff, please go over to my website. That's the cryptidhuntress.com. You can find all of my information over there, and anything you need to find out about me, it's right there on my website. And also, this is where you can find my Patreon if you'd like to become a member. And also, I do have a shop over there on Etsy. It's called War Woman Goods. And I want to thank you guys so much for all of your support. It means the world to me. Okay. And all right, let's get to our show because we have so much to talk about tonight. This show might go kind of long tonight, but we'll see. Okay, so former MIB Jimmy Paine is joining us tonight to discuss the real Vietnam era war lab of Dr. Moreau, as represented in the 1996 film adaptation, The Island of Dr. Moreau, directed by John Frankenheimer. It's a movie based off H.G. Wells' 1896 novel. The film involves genetic experimentation of human-animal hybrids. According to Jimmy, the character of Edward Douglas, if you guys have seen this, is based on his real-life experience at the war lab of Dr. Moreau, a scientist conducting experiments on animals to create animal-human hybrids referred to as the beast folk. Moreau was working to create a higher being by injecting human DNA into animals. The hybrids struggled with their animal instincts and the laws imposed by Moreau, and ultimately rebelled against him and the scientists on that island. The movie showcases Dogman feline humanoids, hyena human hybrids, pig human hybrids, and more. Now, Jimmy is going to discuss this plus the links to Area 51 and the super soldier programs, which are likely still in operation today, as you know. Now, for those of you who have not met Jimmy yet, super soldier agent Jimmy Paine, aka Dallas, was in the secret space program from 1959 to 1996. During this time, he was a shuttlecraft pilot for the Tall White Warriors at Area 51, participated in time travel missions with the Montauk boys at Camp Hero. He also recalls working for the Wayland Corporation, where he encountered a xenomorph at LV-426, which the movie Aliens was based off of. He was stationed on Mars Titan, the moon. On Mars, he's seen the broken statue of a giant face of a humanoid on a mission in 1974 along with Duncan O'Finnian, and he remembers seeing Tommy knockers in the cave on Mars, which looked like tall grays. On the moon, he was stationed at a massive underground base. He was tasked with fighting a monster they called It, which looked like Junior, the Montauk monster, a type of Bigfoot that would gain strength by attacking it. He was on a secret mission from Vandenberg Air Force Base, the Lunar Apollo 20 mission with William Rutledge, where they discovered, I think that's called, what was that? The EBE, Mona Lisa, right? And Jimmy says that the Apollo 20 footage is real, what you see on YouTube. You guys, first of all, I want to introduce Melissa Downer tonight. She's going to be my co-host, actually. Hey, Melissa. Melissa is with True Beings of Light Intuitive Healing. Hey, Melissa. It's so good to see you.
Yes, nice to see you again. Happy New Year's.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Yes,
as well.
Coming out to enjoy some. This is great. This is going to be so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, we enjoyed having you here when we had Jimmy and James Rink on the last time. And rest in peace to our good friend, James Rink.
Yes.
And we enjoyed having you here for the last show.
You. That was so much fun. That was Halloween Eve, actually. Then we did he was looking up some funny skits. That was so much fun. It was. So no skits tonight. Now I'm just going to listen, participate, maybe ask some questions. This is very fascinating. The whole concept, getting to know you more and Jimmy more now, learning about this stuff. It's fascinating. Reading stories and seeing pictures of the humanoids with the animal heads, the dog heads, and things like that.
So, it's what I love. This is right up my alley because I like to get out and look for these things in the woods, Melissa. Okay.
You have to take me out there with you one day, okay? Let me know.
Okay. Well, I'll take it. It's a deal. We'll plan it.
Okay.
We will. Okay. Well, let's introduce our good friend MIB Jimmy Paine tonight. He really needs no introduction because Jimmy's been here before plenty of times. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jimmy Paine. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey there.
Thank you for being here.
Nice being back.
Hello, Jimmy.
Hey,
Hey, Jimmy. Well, we're going to be talking about the island of Dr. Moreau tonight. I heard you might have some information for us.
Yeah. I think the best way to approach this subject, being that this is January the 1st, 2026, and it's like 51 years since the Vietnam War is closed. So I don't have the MIB file in front of me of this X file case, so I'm just going to go by memory. And I'm going to be talking about the mechanics of the war, how the war started, how we got over there, and that we still have 1,571 soldiers that never came home. They're still missing. So tonight, I want y'all to think about the MIAs while we're doing the show on Dr. Moreau here. Okay, I'm gonna go back. You need to know a little history of Southeast Asia, how this conflict started up and how we got involved in it. Because to find a war lab, you have to go to a war. Mm-hmm. The more you know about the war, then the war lab slides into it. And it doesn't just have to be the Vietnam War. It could be any war, such as the Ukraine War, any type of war in the world. So that's why we're going to cover the history of the war tonight. Now, in 1946, World War II is come to a close, and the French had Vietnam and Cambodia. All that is basically old French colonies. And when France pulled out of Southeast Asia to fight the Germans, it left all that open, and the Japanese went in there and they stayed there for, during the Second World War. But after the Second World War was over, the French wanted back in. Now, so the French ended up having a low intensity conflict war with the rebels there. And so the French was in there fighting the Vietnamese from, I know, December 1946 to 1954. So you have the Vietnamese in there. Now, the Vietnamese suffered 120,000 casualties. 120,000 soldiers of French descent died or went missing in Vietnam. And but back in the States, when President Truman was in office, he didn't want to see communism spread. Okay, we pretty much had everything in check. The United States did in Berlin, partitioning off the city to stop the communists from taking over Europe. But Southeast Asia was a different problem. So President Truman appropriated funds to the French government, if they needed to buy war equipment. He funneled money to support them. And he also had advisors. So the Americans had advisors over in Vietnam. At least I know there were American advisors in Vietnam in 1954. There wasn't that many, but we had American advisors in Vietnam in 1954. Now, what happened was in 1959, Saigon, or what we now know as Ho Chi Minh City, was attacked by the Vietnamese, and I believe it was four American advisors were killed. Okay, when that happened, John F. Kennedy became president in 1960. He ran in 1959, but he took office in 1960. Well, as soon as he took office, John F. Kennedy, I think it might have been around about 200 advisors he put over there. So we went from like about 6 or 7 advisors to around about 200 advisors on the ground. And what they were doing, they were, feeding information back to Washington. Well, you could come around to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and they had the warship USS Maddox was off the coast of Vietnam in 1964, and they had they actually, the logbooks of the officer on board the USS Maddox, they lied and they shelled the coastal area. They claimed that they were attacked. They weren't attacked. What they were doing, they shelled the coastal area, and the Vietnamese got to chasing the North Vietnamese got to chasing a South Vietnamese patrol boat, and the two boats got out by the USS Maddox, and the North Vietnamese patrol boat launched a torpedo, okay, from the patrol boat, and it struck the Maddox, and it knocked about a 40-foot hole in the side of the ship. Okay, well, when that happened, um, we started uh, getting real involved in the war. Okay, now you have to remember John F. Kennedy was killed in Dallas in 1963. So by this time, President Johnson is the president. So at about 10:30 one night, the broadcast, your regular TV shows were interrupted, and President Johnson got on TV and he said that we had been attacked and that we were, going to, we will return fire. He was notifying the country that the United States had been attacked. Well, what happened then was, instead of those 200 advisors, it went up to around about 800 advisors. And we were already in Vietnam, after John F. Kennedy got killed. But we weren't fighting. We were just, in there observing the government. So the Gulf of Tonkin incident is what got us into the war. Now, you need to know what the Vietnam was like. We have a country that has no electricity in it. Whatever electricity they had was by generators. And the only buildings that were there were what the French built. They did have a railroad that the French constructed in there. So there was a railroad. There were no paved roads in the entire country. No paved roads. Now, when General Westmoreland landed troops in Vietnam, he built Highway 1. This is a road that runs from damn near from the DMZ zone all the way to as far south as runs a good little ways. That's what they call Thunder Road. And the theory was that he was going to put the equipment on it, tanks and artillery equipment, that he was just going to show up and down this highway and fight this war. The problem was that when you got a tank off the road into the soil, it sunk. See, Vietnam is the ground is real soft. Now, we're going to now talk about hydraulics, the river system. All the water in China, from the great snow-capped mountains of China, Tibet, all that has to drain. Water's going to drain to the lowest point of resistance, okay? So all the water out of Japan drained down into Vietnam. Now, Vietnam has, I want to say it has 5,700 miles of streams. If you took all the creeks and the rivers and the little streams, you have 5,700 miles of nothing but streams. And the whole country is jungle, okay? It's real heavily jungled. So they have a need. The only way you can really fight that is to get a patrol boat, a PBR, patrol boat river, to run these canals. Now that's what I did in Vietnam. I was a courier. I'm a scout. See, I'm too young to fight in Vietnam, but Cambodia and Laos, we're not at war in Cambodia or Laos. But as a scout, hey, I can go in those countries. Now, Vietnam, the first lady of Vietnam, she got with the agricultural minister, and she would go around to the different villages, and they wanted to prepare their young boys to one day become soldiers. So they introduced they copied the Boy Scouts of America. What they had was Boy Scouts of Vietnam. These little boys were age about 7 years old up to about 17. Now, 18, you're required to join the Vietnam Army, the South Vietnam Army. So Clark Air Force Base over in the Philippines had Boy Scouts of America. Well, they wanted to know, well, look, why don't we get some of our Boy Scouts from Clark Air Force Base and send them over to Vietnam, and kind of like an exchange students, you know what I mean? You know what a exchange student is.
Yes. We used to have
So,
exchange students at my house, Jimmy.
yeah. Well, that's what I was, kind of like an exchange student. Now, I can remember they would take Cracker Jacks. Cracker Jacks, you get a prize in a box,
Yeah.
caramel candy. They have to bring in by the pallet loads. And so, but in every box of Cracker Jacks, you get a prize. Now, in those Cracker Jack boxes was a compass and a whistle. Now, you need a whistle because you need to signal somebody, and you need a compass to navigate. So, I had a good friend over there, Kim Lee. He lived in Quezon. So I grew up, in Laos and coming over to Quezon, with my friend Kim Lee. And he was a Boy Scout, and I was a Boy Scout. I'm an American Boy Scout. He's a Vietnamese Boy Scout. But, I was a courier because when I was like about 6 years old, I'd go over to the palace of South Vietnam, the first lady of South Vietnam, and we'd go in there. I bring my coloring book. I'm 6 years old, and they had crayons, and they had these crayons that were numbered, and you take your coloring book. It had pictures in there, and it had numbers on the pictures. So if the grass is green, you get the number 2 green crayon, and you color the number 2 part of the picture. And then like number 3 would be blue, so you take number 3 and you color the sky blue. That was an enigma. It's numbers. So I use my coloring book as an enigma machine, a coded message. Now, I did this for about 2 years, carrying messages from the Palace of South Vietnam to the Palace of Laos. And then I would double back to the White House and have the meet up with President Johnson. And me and President Johnson, we would have a big jar of Oreo cookies. And I would eat my Oreo and he'd eat his Oreo. And they would take my coloring book and they would open the safe up and they would get the codes out and look at the codes in the coloring book, and that would, you know, tell them where the longitude or longitude of the enemy was at, you know.
You were a spy back when you were a kid, Jimmy.
Well,
Oh,
I wouldn't say a spy. I'm just a MIB.
You were intel.
I was
6 years
intel.
old.
Intel, that's a better word.
So I started off at 6 years old carrying messages. I'm a little diplomatic courier, you see. So the thing is, at Area 51, we didn't know this General Westmoreland. Only thing we know is that when the airplane lands, we have body bags to unload. So the resistance, the war resistance, did not start in the streets of America. It started at Nellis Air Force Base and Holloman Air Force Base, because when they saw those young boys coming home in those body bags, being unloaded off those planes, it made the people at the base very sad to see that young boys were being killed for a useless war. So I can remember the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying, "Oh, we lost the war because those kids, they keep bypassing us." I didn't do anything. They lost the war because they didn't know how to fight the war. But I knew how to go around the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I knew how to. We were taking out the enemy faster than the Joint Chiefs of Staff were. No, the coloring book that I had as a child kept many people alive, because when the Joint Chiefs of Staff, by the time the mission came down, the enemy knew it. The enemy knew it. But the enemy didn't know that I was, running around for coloring book with longitudes and latitudes in there of the targets. Now, I'm going to go on now because I've covered that, and we've covered the part about the river system, that it would flood in Vietnam. It flood real bad, and there was trees everywhere. Now, there's some other things we're going to talk about before we go into Dr. Moreau here.
Okay.
Now, in Vietnam, you have malaria, you have dengue fever, you have poisonous snakes, you have leeches in the water. Now, as much as 40% of the South Vietnamese army got malaria. We don't know how many of the Viet Cong got malaria. We don't know how many North Vietnamese got malaria. We can only go by the statistics on the South Vietnamese army, that as many as 40% had malaria. So when you have malaria, you can't fight. You're burning up with fever. And malaria can kill you. Just look at the Panama Canal. How many French died trying to build the Panama Canal? So when the American troops went in, we're subject to malaria. Now, it wasn't as bad with the American soldiers. It was only 20% of American soldiers got malaria compared to 40% of the South Vietnamese soldiers. Now, 2/3 of the population of Vietnam, South Vietnam, lived by the Mekong River. 2/3 of the population lived by the Mekong River. And all the fecal matter, millions of people, fecal matter, there was no sewer systems over there. So all the fecal matter and also you had the animals, the water buffalo, all that fecal matter got into the water. So you had, skin infections, getting on the skin. You had open sores on your skin. We had leeches on us. Okay. Now we're going to go into about the year 1971, I think. And I'm coming from Laos. I was up in Laos, up there at Lima 81. You may know that as Apocalypse Now. You know where Marlon Brando played Colonel Kurtz. I knew Marlon Brando personally. So he did one of my movies, Apocalypse Now. I was known as Lance on the patrol boat, the hippie. Okay. But we're not talking about Apocalypse Now. But when we get down to South Vietnam, it's all marsh down there. It's real muddy, and there is covered. None of the timber has been harvested. Okay, well, these PT boats, patrol boat rivers, PBRs, they get shot up a lot. They also, because of all the mud and the driftwood floating in the rivers, it messes up the impellers of these ships, these vessels. So you had to have a place to repair them. Now, the most isolated base in Vietnam was a base called An Tron. It's 1,000 miles from Saigon, and it is very, very close to Cambodia. It's, in fact, I've actually stepped over into Vietnam. There's, I'm right on the border there. But if you go out on the south coast of Vietnam, several miles out, you come to An Tron. Okay, now we're going to go to the year now 1973. Now, in 1973, the Paris Peace Accords are going on, and the North Vietnam and the United States have sat down in Paris, and they're saying, well, we're going to hold elections in Vietnam, but we have to get all the troops out of Vietnam. That meant that the North Vietnamese couldn't be in there, nor could the Americans be in there. So we go from over 563,000, I believe, of U.S. troops being withdrawn from Vietnam. Now, all the troops are out except 50 soldiers. Now, 10 of those 50 soldiers were Marines. They guarded the embassy in South Vietnam. So you had 10 soldiers that had guns, and they could only stay inside the embassy, the grounds of the embassy. They can't go beyond defense of the embassy. They're there to guard the embassy. So we only have 10 soldiers that has rifles inside the compound. Outside the compound, we have 40 soldiers in there. They don't have rifles, but they're there because if they're there as they're kind of like an attaché office, okay? If the government of South Vietnam needs something from the United States, they can go in there, submit their paperwork. So you say they need supplies, okay? Of course, they didn't need supplies because we filled up the warehouses before we pulled out. But say they need some medicine or something, they can go in there, turn their paperwork in, and to the officers inside that attaché office and get what they need. Now, at about that time this was going on, we're starting to get suspicious. We think the North Vietnamese are not honoring the agreement. Okay, we think there still might be sneaking around in the jungle. All right, so we can't send any soldiers back in there because it'd be, breaking the peace accord. Well, here I am. I'm a scout. I just turned 16 years old, and I'm exchange student. I'm paramilitary. So I'm sent. I was sent to Antron. I'd been to the base before, and when the U.S. Navy pulled out, they left it in charge of the South Vietnamese Navy. So the South Vietnamese Navy's down there, and all the Americans have left out of Antron, except one, and that's me. All right. So I'm seeing traffic in the waterways there. I'm seeing boats, I believe, that are smuggling weapons. All right. So I got to go in. I gotta find out if they're breaking the rules of the peace accord. I need to get evidence. So I got the South Vietnamese Navy to drop me off, and I'm gonna go by foot into the canal system. Now, not only do you have 5,700 miles of natural streams in Vietnam, you also have hand dug canals that's too small for a PBR to get into. And there's over 2,300 of them that we knew of. So you have 2,300 hand dug canals. They're not very wide. You can't get a boat in there, but you can get a canoe in there. Along with, the natural stream. So I went ahead and went on up in there, landed on the southern tip of Vietnam. I'm very close to Cambodian border. And I got in there, and I'm seeing tracks. So I'm pretty sure I'm seeing discarded cases, wooden cases. I know that they had guns in the wooden cases, but I hadn't really caught them yet, So I go on up maybe about 10, 12 miles. I'm on foot. I'm on foot, and it's very swampy, and I'm running low on my anti-malaria pills. Okay, now that part the very South Vietnam next to Cambodia. The highest concentration of malaria in the world is right there. The Panama Canal, as many people got ill building the Panama Canal, is nothing compared to the cases in that area down there next to Cambodia. It's heavily infested with malaria. So when I got in there, I'm running real low on my anti-malaria pills. But you know, when you're young, you think you're tough, you're hard-headed, and I don't want to turn back. I want to keep pushing on, So I ended up making contact, and there was a firefight in there. And when I got ready to search the bodies, I thought they had malaria pills, anti-malaria pills on them, because they wouldn't be in there either without the anti-malaria pills. Well, guess what? They had ran out of anti-malaria pills like me.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah. So I didn't, by the time that I made it back out, I'm starting to get sick. I'm running a fever, and I'm burning up with fever. So by the time that I did make it out, that area, there's a lot of junk boats up in that area. Junks we call them, and that's a heavy drug trade. That's where your pirates come from. There are pirates. When we think of pirates, you think of Somalia pirates. Well, there are pirates in the waterways down there. And there are also mercenaries that, run up and down there as well. So I run across two mercs, two mercenaries, and they know that I've got malaria. They say, "Well, look, we know where there's a doctor, and a doctor is about the nearest doctor other than him is 350 miles. I'm not going to make it 350 miles, so I've got to get to his doctor, the one that they're talking about." So I get with them, and I'm in a little vessel, and they get to fighting in the vessel. And I'm thinking what happened was they didn't want to go back to the island. They were Moreau's technicians, okay? Dr. Moreau's technicians. And when they were fighting, I took the boat paddle and, knocked them over, shark got them. But I floated for a couple of days. The winds blew me out real far. Okay, like I said, I'm real disoriented. I'm dehydrated. I'm in and out of consciousness, and a junk pulled up next to me, and I was in the sea of Thailand, and that's where I met Montgomery.
This is where the movie starts, Jimmy.
This is where the movie starts.
For anyone who has watched this movie, I hope you've all watched it. The Island of Dr. Moreau with Val Kilmer. Okay, the 1990s version. This is where the movie starts.
Now, when I woke up, I'm in a car. I'm in the bottom of a ship, and Montgomery's in there, and I've got an IV hooked up to me, and I'm very dehydrated, and I hear him talking, but I woke up when he was talking, and apparently he had a radio there. He just hid it from me, you know. But he told me, he said, well, in a day or two, they were going to be at a location, and that he's going to get off, and that they were going to send me on further to my location where I can get, you know, a regular doctor. Now, Montgomery, I asked him, I said, well, you know, he had medical supplies. He said, well, he was sort of a doctor, but he's really a neurologist. You know, that's what he specialized in is neurology.
Now, Jimmy, I
But
want to let the audience know Montgomery is the Val Kilmer character in this movie.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I ended up going with him because he didn't trust the pilot, the pirates. I mean, you know. But when I got to the island, you know, he unloaded the rabbits, and we went to where the cages were at. Now these rabbits were experimental rabbits. I didn't understand it at the time. I just thought, you know, that's just what they eat. But they were using the rabbits for experiments. And but he killed one of the rabbits when he had the cage opened. And I'm thinking that when he killed the rabbit, Lomar, which is a cheetah, a part human, part cheetah, was in the tall grass watching us. But he went ahead and took me to the main compound, and I walked in. I'm seeing certificates on the wall, and those were Dr. Moreau's certificates. And he tells me Dr. Moreau uh, invented Velcro, but he did help develop it, but he was cheated out of his Nobel Prize. The other chemist in there turned on him, but he actually invented Velcro, but he's not given credit for it. The other three scientists were given credit. This happened many, many years when he was a young man, about, you know, about 11 or 12 years earlier. And so Montgomery locked me in the room, and I eventually got out of the room, you know, and that night when I was, you know, looking around the compound, I'm trying to figure out why he locked me in the room. You know, he said it was for my own good. And I walked in on opened one of the sheds. I heard some noise and went in there, and I'm seeing a llama, a part female human, part llama hybrid giving birth. And I, you know, I immediately, you know, got out of there, you know, and I met Dr. Monroe's. I had met Dr. Monroe's daughter earlier that day, and she told me, that she said that if I wanted off the island, I had to go with her. And so she took me to see Sayer of the Law. Now, this is another hybrid human that's he's part ram. He's got the horns of a ram. And Sayer of the Law, he's blind. I met him, and I also met well, right before I met him, I met another. I'm trying to think of his name. He's a baboon. Let me think of his name for a second there. Just one moment while I think. I met like a baboon there, and he had 5 fingers, and he put his fingers over my fingers, and apparently if you have 5 fingers, you're considered human. And that's how I met the baboon. Okay. But it was like I said, I would say at least I went down into the underground bunker where Sarah the Law was at. I estimate maybe 250 hybrid humans that I saw, and it stunk really, really bad. They defecate on themselves. They they're just all messed up. They're on drugs. Montgomery was giving them drugs, to calm them down. And yeah, and Montgomery, I think Montgomery might have been having sex with the big lady.
They actually kind of referred to that in that movie, and that was a little disturbing. Okay, he was like kissing on the pig ladies. Okay,
yeah,
and so I'm assuming. I mean, people are sick. Okay, people are sick. Humans can be pretty gross. But that's really sad. Now, Jimmy, this actually kind of, not to interrupt you, but this kind of reminds me of like Dulce base. I mean, we've actually covered here on the channel the Billywhack dairy and like the experiments that OSS officer was doing in a lab underneath that dairy back in the 1920s. Okay, they've been doing human animal hybrid experiments for long time.
Well, going back to Dulce, New Mexico, I've been in that underground base. And the scientists that are down there are forced to work with the alien scientists. And if you ever watch the movie Resident Evil, well, that's based off of a true event. I've been to Raccoon City, and there is a train down underneath Dulce, New Mexico. I've been all down in there. I was there when Thomas Costello came up missing. There was a big uproar when Thomas Costello went missing. But getting back to the island of Dr. Moreau. Now, when I did meet Dr. Moreau, he was being carried. He was in a chair, and they had taken 2 poles and attached to the chair, and was carrying him like you would like an emperor, like you see like Egyptians carrying an emperor, and
he was their god, right?
Well, he was their god, he was their father,
right.
And he had on he was covered in white lotion, you know, uh, suntan, keep him, like he's got some kind of allergy.
That's like SPF 100 or something, right? Super thick.
Well, yeah, he put it on, and like I said, the whoever did the movie did a real good job of it, because Marlon Brando did a hell of a good job imitating Dr. Moreau. See, I advise Marlon Brando on Apocalypse Now, about Colonel Kurtz, but I did not advise him on the island of Dr. Moreau. So,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't advise him on that one. But he did a very good character portray of Dr. Moreau. And Dr. Moreau was very highly religious. He was a Bible thumper, you know. He could sit there and quote the Bible. And how do you, when I sat down with Dr. Moreau in his home with his servants and everything, and he'd sit there and quote scripture.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was highly intelligent. Highly intelligent.
Well, he had to be pretty intelligent to do. I mean, the things that he did were kind of sick, right? Making these hybrid experiments. I mean, how did this scientist end up there on this island? First of all, doing these experiments. Was he part of the government? Was this part of Area 51? Was this private, like a privatized doctor, and he was just doing his own thing?
Well, let me tell you what I know some information about him, but it's very limited. Now, you have to remember when I came to Area 51, I was only like six years old. Okay. Now, about the time that I came to Area 51, I think he got some kind of trouble and he left Area 51. He got in some kind of trouble. And when I talked to Montgomery, Montgomery told me that he got ran out of the states because of the animal rights people, you know, because he couldn't cage a rat without reading the rat its rights.
Oh God,
Uh
PETA, probably PETA.
yeah. Well, I don't know if it was that organization, but it was probably some type of animal rights organization,
And probably human rights organizations too,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
I would think so. It's illegal. I mean, there's international agreements with United Nations. You can't do that kind of research. Now, interestingly, going back on our last show we did about the werewolves being able to withstand the radiation of the Van Allen radiation belt. So maybe he was getting some type of money to try to make some type of a super soldier. And another thing is that if you can enhance a soldier like Lomar, like the cheetah, Lomar can run very quick on all four, and climb a tree and everything. So I do know that they, like the Chinese, like, they're trying to tinker with the DNA of their soldiers to make them super soldiers. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind that, Dr. Monroe's former Area 51, but he was run off back in the early 60s when I was a child. But he was using my blood. He was trying to give it to his daughter to keep her from regressing. Because when I went into the lab, all the paperwork was scattered. Montgomery had destroyed the serum, and Montgomery, of course, he was a dopehead. I mean, I met a lot of guys in Vietnam that was on dope, but Montgomery was way out there, and he in the end, he was shot by the butler, but can you imagine 250 or so hybrid humans, and they're coming off their drugs, and their hormones are all mixed up, and they get a hold of the armory where their weapons are stored, and they arm themselves. I mean, they were very dangerous.
Yeah, that's next level. Actually, as a matter of fact, so in the movie, because Jimmy, you and I got to watch that movie together the other night. That was fun. And but they actually show the hyena man, who, by the way, I just want to let the audience probably knows this because they've watched my shows probably. A lot of regulars in here tonight, I hope. And we know about the hyena type dogmen, as we call them. And it's actually one of the most commonly reported types of dogmen. There's all sorts of different types of dogmen. Now, we can't say they're dogmen because hyenas are not from the dog family. Okay, they're not canine. But if you look down at this chart, if the audience look down at this chart on the bottom, the canine variant 2, that's been classified by the North American Dogman Project and others as a type of dogman. But it's really just some sort of a hybrid. We don't really know what these things are. Okay, but from what we're seeing in this movie and from your testimony, Jimmy, we're seeing in all the research we've been doing and doing shows about, we know there's a lot of these weird hybrid experiments going on, but these things are prevalent today. Today, people are seeing those things. And it makes me wonder, have these experiments been going on? And some of them may be natural to this earth. I don't know. But some of them may not be. And if we're dealing with military, what's the connection here? Okay, like is there a connection is my question, I guess.
Well, we take those underground bases that's being built. Like I was telling you about my good friend Phil Snyder before he was murdered. He used to build underground bases. And we also have with a guy that 411 that goes to the national parks to investigate missing people.
David Politis.
Yeah, David. Mm-hmm. It could be that this program has started back up, and that they've gone possibly to these remote forests, and you may have some of these hybrid humans that are coming out, at certain times of the night and roaming the forest, and you might be getting. I'm not saying it. You are. I'm saying it may be that it's possibly that might be what people are seeing and reporting. These hybrid humans. But it's something.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the only that what I did with the hyena when I was at the house, when Dr. Moreau was attacked, I had just come out of my room, and they had attacked him, and I took my gun. The reason I didn't fire it because I was scared I would hit Dr. Moreau, but he was fatally wounded, and so I just shot one round off up in the air to scare him off, but the hyena grabbed the necklace, that he wore around. Dr. Moreau wore around his collar.
Can we tell the audience about this necklace, Jimmy, a little bit? Because I actually meant to. I was kind of I forgot. I kind of lost track of my thoughts a while ago. I was going to get into the fact that they had chips in them. They had some sort of a device which controlled these beasts. And so Dr. Moreau had a necklace with like a remote control, and it was connected to all of the different hybrid animal humans that were out there, and he would just hit a button and it would disable them. Like it was like a shock collar inside their body, basically.
Yeah, he did do that. The hyena pulled his implant out because when Montgomery started freaking out when he realized that the hyena had pulled his implant out, and we both ran after the hyena, with dart guns. We couldn't catch the hyena. But see, when I was at Area 51, we never did shot the werewolves. Okay, the werewolves are stable. There's no implants in the werewolves other than just a barcode, and maybe if there are implant, it would be just for tracking. You know what I mean? That the animals were extremely dangerous. The werewolves were much easier to work with. We never shot the werewolves because there never was a need for it. But he would do that to keep them under control. And so you had Sayer of the Law, and Sayer of the Law after Moreau's death. It was Sayer of the Law and the baboon that I got with, to get things under control. But I ended up, like I said, when the hyena when they got into the armory and got the weapons, the only way I was able to get it under control was because I told the hyena that he had, they had eaten the flesh of the father, and the hyena was obsessed with wanting to be called a god. So I called him a god, but I said, well, hey, the other ones ate the flesh as well. So who's God number one? Well, that was all that I needed, because once he realized there could only be one God, that's when he turned on the other ones with the automatic weapon. Yeah. So that scene about him killing other animals and then retreating back into the buildings, very, very true. I'm thinking Sayer the Law is who told after I left. I think Sayer the Law is the one that told other researchers what had happened. But everything on the island, even the rats, were genetically modified.
Yeah, the rat. That was an interesting scene, Jimmy, when the character played that portrays you was trying to leave the island. I guess trying to get on a boat. The rats prevented that. They were mutants for real.
Well, the rats had teeth, had canines like a dog.
Yeah, that was weird.
I mean, if that rat had bit me, I mean, we're talking a good inch long teeth, sharp as a dog, and it jumped, even though it was a rat. I mean, it walked upright. It could stand on its hind legs. It would run on all four, but it could stand up on its hind legs like it could walk.
Do you think the rats were also chipped, or they were controlled with a remote?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that everything, even the snakes, were modified, genetically modified on the island. Any animal was modified. Now, I never saw any birds. That was unusual. I'm thinking because, see, they didn't want them to eat any kind of meat. I think the birds were either poisoned, but you have to remember, if the bird got off the island and let's say it did make it to the mainland, the whole island was quarantined. No ship would go near the island. The island was restricted. Okay. I'm thinking the radio set up when I went into the radio shack. It was set up similar to the Radio Shack that I had up in Laos, you know. So apparently they used it to report, you know, traffic, you know, like maybe enemy patrols in that part of the ocean, you know. He was just stuck out there, just so far out, so far off the coast there.
Jimmy, I have a question. When everything got burned to the ground, basically that one fateful night, everything got burned down. I mean, there were some survivors of all of this, including the Ram Man, as I'm going to call him. And I know in the movie they were asking your character not to leave. They wanted you to stay there. And
Yeah,
what was the outcome with them, with all these hybrid animals that were in humans that were on that island?
When I was getting ready to leave, the baboon, Asaya, I think his name was, he didn't want me to leave. You know, he wept. I had 5 fingers. You know, I'm 5 finger man. He has 5 fingers. Yeah, 5 finger guy.
We call them fingers down here, don't we?
Yeah.
We call them fingers.
Well, he didn't want me to leave. And Sarah the Law, when I talked with him, you know, I was thinking maybe some people at Area 51 could help him. And he didn't. He just told me, he said that he didn't want nobody else, you know, poking on him anymore. You know, he probably been jabbed by Montgomery, you know, hypodermic needle, stuff like that. He just didn't want any more of it. He said, "What if he reverted back to all 4, then so be it."
Jimmy, do you think that there were other war labs like this where they were doing these experiments, and maybe if they're still in use today?
Well, I do know about the one in Duce, New Mexico. That one I've been in. I have seen it. When I was another lab I know of is if you go back into the Alien movies that I did with James Rink. Mm-hmm. I never did cover the lab where they were cloning Ripley. Ripley was cloned, part human and part something else. One of the creatures on the Alien movies I did. But I'm thinking the Chinese are doing it. I'm thinking well, I wouldn't be surprised if the Ukrainians are doing it to win the war. I just wouldn't be surprised. But I do think that, yeah, I think they're probably what you're seeing or reports coming in about strange creatures. It's possible that this research is going on underground in some of these underground bases, you know, particularly in the remote areas of the country by some of the national parks, you know.
Jimmy, okay. We have discussed on my channel before werewolves used in wartime in battle. And I am curious what your thoughts are on werewolves being used during Vietnam. I have discussed, there are some reports out there of werewolves being used by handlers like U.S. military. Let's just say U.S. military, just as an example. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, it's theoretical. Using werewolves to go down into the tunnels to wipe out some of the Vietnamese soldiers. What do you know about that, if anything?
Well, I've done that. You know, get a pistol and a flashlight and go down into the tunnel, and that's probably one of the worst jobs you can get. A tunnel rat, you know, to go down and shoot whoever is in the tunnel. It's either going to be you or him. It's real dangerous. But this is my question to you. You keep talking about handlers. You have to
Yes.
remember, if you have a soldier trained in combat, what does he need a handler for? If he's a werewolf, if he is trained as a soldier and he's a werewolf, what does he need a handler for? As long as he has rank, he could be any rank. He could be any rank and go in there and do the job himself, you know.
That's a good point. You know what, Jimmy? Well, see, that's the thing of like normal minds who like don't believe werewolves are even real. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know werewolves exist. They think they're fairy tales. But I mean, I have people who are probably in the chat right now who are watching our show live. People who are watching who have contacted me to let me know that they actually are werewolves, and there are other people that change into other forms, let's just say, and they're just humans basically.
Are they chipped? Are they chipped too? I'm just curious. Would they be chipped like Jimmy said the other animals were chipped? Do you think?
Well,
in the military, maybe.
First of all, Area 51 never shot any of the werewolves. They were not. None of them were never. Look, if there's anything, we helped them. Okay, like when we did the show on wolves, you know, with Angel, the last one me and you did, Misha. I mean, Jessica. We gave her, you know, she could go to the doctor, Area 51. We got her Social Security started up, you know, where she had some money coming in, you know what I mean? Area 51 is pretty good for somebody that's a werewolf because they're cared after, you know. I can't see them wasting the werewolves on a war because one, they're more needed and to do space missions. All right, they're the only ones that can go past the Van Allen radiation belt. Why would you take what few werewolves you have and waste them in a war while they're more needed in the space program? Now, I'm not saying they're not werewolves in the military. I think they are, but they're more needed. They're more needed in the space program than they would be on a battlefield.
Gosh, that makes a lot of sense. And Jimmy, I've actually had whistleblowers who have been on my show discussing how they have seen werewolves and interacted with them in the secret space programs, and they have been on spacecraft with them before.
Well, I'm like this, Jessica. There's just not that many of them. And just like you were talking about breeders and handlers and all that, the werewolves themselves look down on people like that. You know, they don't need that. Okay. What they need is like a social program, you know, social services like, you know, proper medical care, counseling, stuff like that. They don't need to be exploited, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I never had a problem with the werewolves. I got along with the werewolves. What I had a problem with are the hybrids on the island of Dr. Moreau. And let me tell you how I found out. If you ever get in trouble and you get chased by one of them, one of these hybrids, if you see some fecal matter, step in it. Take the fecal matter, rub it on your arms, rub it on your face, rub it on your cheeks. Because if you smell like one of them, he can't track you.
Ew.
Okay.
So wait, Jimmy, I got to ask you something. Because I go looking for, I go Dogman investigating quite often. I'm in the woods all the time. So you're saying I should pick up some poop and just slather it and I'll be fine.
Well, let me ask you this now.
Okay.
Let's turn
So
let's turn the tide around here. Let's say you was on the island, Dr. Moreau, and you heard a commotion and you walked into Dr. Moreau's porch there and you saw Dr. Moreau mauled to death.
Ooh.
They mauled him and they was eating his flesh.
Yeah.
Now and they got after you. Would you not take, if you saw fecal matter, would you not take it and rub it on your arms, your legs, and your face to hide your scent to escape them?
Yeah.
Now that I know that's what I need to do, absolutely I do it. Yeah.
Well, that's what I did, and that's how. So they can't. Their sense of smell, they're thinking it's one of their other friends that, See, I covered my scent. Now, I learned that when like when we did the we didn't, but when me and James did the Predator movies, how I got the mud on me, and when I realized the Predator couldn't see me, I used to put the mud on me because when I was up in Laos with the Haman tribe, I would always mud down, with the mud because of the insects. And another thing, I didn't want a tiger to smell me and eat me. So I would always use the mud. And I never did get ate. Well, I've been around tigers, you know what I mean? But I'm just letting you know about the fecal matter. If you go into these forests and you see these creatures that now don't go around and there's some rabbit poop and rub rabbit poop on you because they eat rabbits now. They'll chase the rabbit.
That's why it's important to know your poop, y'all. Know the different types of poop. And I'm not kidding. This is for real. That's what we were teaching my son, my friend David Pardue. I don't know if David's in the chat tonight. He's up out of North Carolina, a longtime Bigfoot field researcher. And he took my son and I out in the woods one day. We were on an expedition. And he was teaching my son about the different types of poop out there. And I remember my son got so mad. He goes, I came to look for Bigfoot, not learn about poop. He was so mad. But, it's actually very important. You got to know what's what. So you know what predators are in the area, what food's in the area, the migration, all that. It's really important. Well, and now we have another reason to know it.
Yeah.
Well, the butler liked a good hunt. The servant, the Dr. Moreau's butler.
I thought that was his son. Well, he called him father. They all called him father, though, didn't they, Jimmy?
Yeah, he called all of his sons and daughters, and he was the father. He was the father, okay. But when father was killed, the social order started breaking down. The social order started to break down. That's what was so dangerous about it. And like I said, once the power went out, the electricity went out from the generators, I'm on an island with these creatures and they can, smell you, your scent, and that's what I did to stay alive because I didn't want to get mauled to death like Dr. Moreau did.
It was quiet. Are you still there?
Oops. Sorry, y'all. I had
Oops.
my microphone muted. For the audience, this is the character that was portrayed by Jim, or that
Right.
portrayed Jimmy Paine, y'all. This is Edward Douglas.
Douglas.
Yeah,
Edward Douglas. Okay.
Douglas,
gotta
aka
write that
Jimmy
down.
Paine, and this is actually looking at one of these. Well, they call it an what is the word? An abhorrent. What is that word? That you call?
Crimea.
Yeah, or
Crimea.
well, a chimera. Yes, there's actually my question, Jimmy. I was going to ask you about this because this has been kind of boggling my mind a little bit. Now, Dr. Moreau had a mini me. Okay, he had what I call a mini me. Now, I did a couple of shows last year on the homunculus. Okay, and I was just curious. I have no idea if this is what this is or not, but could he have been dealing with homunculi as well? Do you know what a homunculus is, Jimmy?
I know what gibbons are.
Mm-hmm.
The gibbons are little monkeys, but if you look at his hand, he's got a claw. See his hand? One hand is clawed.
Oh, okay. Interesting. He does have claws. So he was actually a human animal hybrid too, then. They're all
I
human
thought
animal hybrids.
I thought he might have been an armadillo.
Oh,
Oh.
armadillo. That's what we call them down here in the South. We actually just had a possum drop last night down the road from where I live. And anyways, long story. You might be a redneck if you go to the possum drop. Okay, just saying. I love it, y'all. But yeah, that's a good point, Jimmy. Could have been, or maybe even like a. I hate to say this, but like a rodent or something. I mean, with his little claw hands. I don't know. It's all strange, all very strange.
Can I ask a quick question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want
Go ahead.
I'm just curious about the timeline with the work with Area 51, the Dull Space, and the time with Dr. Moreau. What for you? What timeline is it? Like first, second, third type thing? What order? I was just curious.
Well, I grew up at Area 51, and when I got into Duce, New Mexico, is about the time Thomas Costello was trying to break the information out. And Thomas Costello worked security at Duce, New Mexico. And he had been doing some filming, and he was going to expose it to the world, what was going on underneath Duce, New Mexico. And I was supposed to go out in the desert and get the films because he had buried them. And he ended up coming up missing. Nobody's seen him since. Okay. Now, that was back in the 70s.
Okay.
I'm thinking. It's pretty good question. Did the Moreau happen first, or Thomas Costello coming up missing happen first? I don't recall. I know that they're close together because it's right around about that same time period. Because, but what I saw at Duce, New Mexico was more human and alien hybrids than this. This was clearly just animals at on Dr. Moreau's Island. But see, animals breed quicker. Okay, animals breed quicker. So if you had breed a bunch of soldiers real quick. Now, when he went down to the bunker, when Montgomery was down there, they was having orgies down there. Drug fuel orgies.
Whoa.
You saw the animals screwing down there.
Oh God, for entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And
they show that in the movie though. Actually,
They do. Okay. No children
yeah, they
watching
do.
it.
They do.
well,
How'd your kids
well,
Yep.
well,
turn on mute? You got kids. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Montgomery was handing out the drugs. He was kissing on the pig lady.
Yeah, he was. He liked those
Yeah,
pig ladies.
yeah, he
He
did.
did.
But
A piggy
but
party.
like,
Oh, no, just kidding. That's
yeah,
terrible. I saw
but
the
he now another thing I want to point out, the junk, that's what we call them, junks. The ship that picked me up with Montgomery on it,
Mhm.
I
Oh,
could have
yeah, in the
swore
beginning of the movie.
in the beginning of the movie,
Mhm.
he had a radio on that ship. Now that I think about it, I'm thinking that ship might be like a, if you think about international waters, if you had a, a laboratory on a ship, like some of the work, the smaller work, like in test tubes, all right, I'm thinking that ship might have been a lab ship. See, you had to have, when supplies are dropped off at the island of Dr. Moreau, you had to have a ship. And I'm thinking, now I'm thinking that part of the research took the, the test tube stuff took place on the ship, but you had to have a place to let the animals grow, on an island. And that was phase one of the experiment. The island was. But I'm thinking, to get around international law, why couldn't you have a laboratory ship? A lab on the ship.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because Montgomery was on there. But I could
Right.
have swore he was talking on the radio when I woke up, and he hit it.
Hmm. Well, he was almost kinda tricking you a little bit, Jimmy, because once he got you on the island, he put you into your living quarters for the evening, and he locked the door behind you, and there were bars on the windows.
Yeah. Now, when I went into the room, the curtains were pulled, and then when he closed the door, he locked it. I mean, if I wanted out, I could have kicked the door. I mean, it's the point that what he did. I didn't understand it. You see what I'm saying? And then you have to remember, I was still kind of weak from the fever and everything. When I got to the island, and um, I knew how dangerous the animals were. Now, Dr. Moreau didn't see the danger in it, and he ended up, like I said, he was mauled to death by his children.
His children. Right.
His
Uh,
sons, and go ahead.
mhm. Speaking of, excuse me, his children. Ooh, excuse me. Whew. Okay, speaking of his children, I'm sorry, so sorry, y'all. His daughter, uh, she was his perfection or something like that. From what I remember the movie, in the movie, they were saying, well, he had almost hit like perfection with her or something, because she did not look like a human animal hybrid at all at first. And when she first entered the scene on the movie, when your character walked up to on the deck, she was dancing, she just looked like a normal human. And I'm thinking, well, oh, she must have come over as a little girl with the scientist. But no, actually, she was a cat woman or something, like a feline. Not to ruin the movie if you hadn't seen it, but y'all need to go watch the movie.
Yeah.
Like a feline human, and she would shapeshift. And she shapeshifted because she didn't have the right hormones or had the right injection. There was something that she was missing, and it would cause her to shapeshift. Uh, but she did it when she got upset. At the very end of the movie, she got it. Right before she got, you know, she got dead. I guess you could say. She started to shapeshift, almost like she was protecting you.
Well, I looked at her, and when I raised up her lips, her canines had started to grow. Um, her her teeth was not. I mean, apparently when they change, it doesn't take long for them to change. Maybe not immediately, but a matter of days, they could change. And her eyes started, her pupils went from round to slit. You could see their pupils they were still round, but they were starting to, get thinner, kind of a split like.
Mhm.
And when I looked at her ears, or pulled her hair back and looked at her ears started to turn back into a cat. But when I went into the lab, I looked, when Montgomery had tore the lab up. I went in there and looked around in the lab. There was no serum for her.
So
She was near human.
Is that
So
the
by
one you
her-
gave blood to? Too? Is that the one you gave blood to?
Well, what they did when I was unconscious on the ship, they had taken samples of my blood when I was unconscious, and they were mixing it with the medicine, and something about my blood. She could tolerate it better with my blood. See, I'm genetically modified myself. I'm a clone human, but um, her blood, the shape of her blood cells when it was mixed with my blood, it was stabilizing her.
Okay.
so Jimmy, so when father was saying that he had almost his daughter was pretty much perfection, or perfected whatever his experiments were, was his ultimate goal, do you believe, to make shape-shifting human hybrids, or was it just to make hybrids? I mean, I guess it was all of it, I guess, according to the movie. But
I,
ultimately,
I, now I've had a lot of years to think about this. It's been over 50 years. And now I look back at it and I reflect on it. I'm thinking that there's two things that we're at here. One, to get past the Van Allen radiation belt, they can take animals can take the radiation better than humans. Like the werewolves can take the radiation better. Well, the animals can take the radiation better. All right, so suppose you have Hyena, he's in a secret space program. All right, or the Catwoman.
mhm.
The Catwoman on spacecraft. Okay. Now, I think Moreau, when I would listen to him quote the Bible and everything, he thought that he could breed out violence out of people. He could, in other words, he could, you know, if you could stop us from warring, you know what I mean? You have to remember the war's going on. People are being killed, and he's seeing that. Look at all the soldiers that had died in Vietnam, and all of a sudden, there's no soldiers in South Vietnam. He couldn't get the blood that he needed for his lab. And here comes Jimmy Paine. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All of us, you have 560 something thousand troops in Vietnam, and they all get pulled out. And then I'm just, one of the very few left, and that's when he took notice of me.
Hmm. So at the time, they did not know that you were connected to Area 51.
I think that when I was on the vessel, no, I don't think he knew I was Area 51. But when I got to the island, I realized what he was doing. And then I started talking to Montgomery, and Montgomery told me that, they had been in the States, that he had been run out of the States. And, but that kind of research, if you go back to Duce, New Mexico, I think that's where Dr. Moreau comes from, is from from Duce, New Mexico. He just simply left and he went over into a war zone because he knew that there was a lot of blood and there was a lot of people, getting killed. And what better place to hide a war lab is in a war zone. And you have to have a place to carry these experiments out. You can't you couldn't let these creatures out in the national forest in the United States. What kind of
Shoot,
response?
Jimmy, that's I don't mean to like interrupt you there, but that's something that we talk about a lot on my channel, is that there are people getting attacked. There's a lot of people going missing at these national parks, Jimmy. And we're talking about thousands upon thousands of people that go just without a trace out of our national parks. And so one of the theories is that some of these hybrid animals, so these human hybrids and some of these dogmen, even Bigfoot, are taking some of these people.
Well, I agree with you, Jessica, but what I'm saying is, I think it started at Duce, New Mexico, and then it
Yes.
ended up on the island, off of Vietnam, and then when Dr. Moreau died, it's entered into another phase, and the doctor may be dead, but the research is not. It's gone on.
Mhm.
And now the research is focusing on American soil at these underground bases in these national parks.
Oh man, I mean,
Okay.
do you believe that maybe some of these missing people are getting snatched out? Because my team actually
Yeah.
has documented a portal.
Yeah.
I believe it's like human made portal with like alien technology. Maybe I
Yep.
don't know. That's what I think.
I
And
agree.
and I think
I agree.
yeah, I think
I read
they'd be
about that.
taking people
Yeah.
and putting them into these programs and making them into human animal hybrids and stuff. I mean, that's what I think.
That's yeah.
Well, I know this for a fact, is that I've seen, Charlie, my best friend at Creech Air Force Base. Charlie, my best friend, he's a white male, and he's spliced with a tall gray. And he's just I mean, he's a likable guy, but he's part tall gray, you know, and so I know that's going on, that they're experimenting with humans and aliens. That's going on real big time in Duce, New Mexico. Now, see, you have the aliens, they want to mix with us because there's other planets that they see. Not only can we go to their planets, but they can come to our planet. Okay. All right. Some, excuse me, some aliens don't do well on our Earth. It's either too much sunlight, or it's not, it's too cool. So the weather's getting hotter and hotter. That's what they like. They like hot weather. Um, Now with the animals, suppose you got a hyena and you crossed them with a tall gray. Or you know what I'm saying? You have a hyena, instead of crossing a hyena with a human, you cross a hyena with a tall gray.
You'd have a gray hyena, y'all.
So
Man.
when you start talking, we're having trouble tonight. Me and you are having trouble. We can't we can't explain the animal. But what I'm trying to say is, instead of a human hyena, why can't you have a hyena tall gray?
Yeah.
I like
or
the way you think, Jimmy. Outside the
or
box here.
a hyena smile gray, or a hyena reptilian.
Ooh,
Do,
ooh.
Yeah.
do you see what I'm
That's
saying?
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, we're not only we splicing humans with aliens, we're splicing aliens with animals. So that might be why we can't explain it. You're having trouble tonight trying
Yeah.
to tell me what the reports are.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I wonder if hyenas eat Viennas. You know what, Jimmy? My audience likes to get me to say Vienna sausages. I don't know if you call them Viennas or Viennas. Okay, down where I live, we call them Viennas.
I call them bodies.
Thank you. I knew
It's
it.
our southern.
It's
It's our accent.
it's my southern brethren over here. Yeah, we call them Viennas. Yes, we said it tonight, y'all. Okay, and I say it: chicken fingers, tater logs, and Vienna sausages.
Right, so
Okay.
just-
Melissa, I bet you don't call them Viennas, do you?
no, I'm Canadian, so no, yeah. I say
You
things
said
a lot.
it the
There's
right
many
way.
things I say differently than you guys do. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm Canadian. Yeah, got to say that in American accent. I'm Canadian. That's
No,
what
we're
gets really
basically
funny before.
practically two separate languages right
Yep.
there. Right? Just kidding. Oh man.
Oh,
Jimmy, I love it. That is a wonderful point. I've not looked at it that way before. Because we're always thinking, I mean, we're just always busting outside this box and busting outside the
yeah,
box. And it's like animal human hybrids. Well, why are they not animal ET hybrids?
yeah.
Exactly.
Duh. Why? I had not gone down that route yet. So
Now
thank you, Jimmy.
I tell you something interestingly. I got a call one time that there had been a underwater object, you know, and some kids were playing on a beach, and they walked up what they thought was a pile of seaweed, on the beach, and they saw it moving, and so they called the MIBs all rushed down there, and it was I want to say kind of like a gill man was in the seaweeds. It was an alien. It was reptilian, but it's kind of like the creature from the Black Lagoon. You know what I mean? And we ended up putting in a tank because it could. I mean, it could live outside the water, but it can only live so long. And we
Whoa.
put it in a tank with we could look through a little pane of glass and look at it. But it was a gill man, or what we would call a gill man, but it was extraterrestrial.
That's like a merman. Was it amphibious or did it have
It
legs?
well, it was similar to the if you watch the old black and white movie, the sci-fi movie, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, it was a gill man. I've seen, and actually I've seen gill men in North Vietnam.
Huh.
Now, right about where the DMZ zone is, I found a
Mhm.
cave, and what we were doing, we were trying to figure out how the North Vietnamese were getting past the DMZ zone. We thought they were using this cave, and when I went into the cave, it was blocked up. It had well, you could put your hand on the wall, and it was slightly cool. Like a refrigerator cool, and you could take your flashlight and shine on the wall, and it would absorb the light. And it had a vibration to it, like machines running behind it. Well, the story doesn't end there. It had strange writing on the wall, Now that I look back at it, it was extraterrestrial writing. But we had gone out on patrol one night in the PT boat, and they had dropped us off in one of the canals, and we was walking through the jungle, and we had stopped. Every once in a while you stop and be quiet and you listen, see if you could hear the enemy moving. But sure enough, I heard noise, and I looked over, in the tree line, and I seen these creatures. They were glowing. They were like a bluish white, but they looked like a light bulb, um, like a 20-watt light bulb, just a real low powered light bulb. And they were gill men. It was a gill man, and it had web hands. There was like I saw 4 of them at first, and I squatted down. Me and the other guy did. It was extraterrestrial. It was in the jungle. Now, what happened? After they passed through, a few minutes later, 3 or 4 more of them passed through. So I cut around, and we went back to the canal, and the PT boat pulled up, and we jumped on the PT boat. And by that time, there might have been about 80 or 90 of them, extraterrestrials. They were lined up on the canal,
Mm-hmm.
and we opened up gunfire on them. We were firing back at them, and they started to return fire with some type of laser weapon. And the PT boat, the patrol riverboat that I was on, we got 2 180 horsepower Detroit diesel engines on them, and the guy, pushed it all the way up, and that boat reared up. Yeah, pedal to the metal, and we were shooting everything off, all the rifles, all the machine guns, the deck
all
gun.
gas, no brakes.
Yeah, and floodlight. Well, hell, we didn't need the floodlight. They were like light bulbs up on the side of the canal. We could see them.
Jimmy, I wanted to ask you something real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I had just covered this week the Frogmen. Okay, there's like Frogmen. There's all these videos going around of these look like frog reptilian humanoids, and they're like in Mexico. It's hard to decipher what's AI and what's real at this point. Okay, but I do know that historically we have had reports of frogmen across the United States, across the world. I was tasked with that. I'm a remote viewer, trained in remote viewing, the military style. And I was given the Loveland Frogmen as a blind. I had got like 4 targets of the Loveland Frogmen out of Ohio. And part of my data included Montauk, time travel. Okay, these frogmen were seen with what people described as magic wands, kind of like what you're talking about, something that had sparks coming out of it, like a little wand.
Okay, well, let me tell you, I've encountered one, and it's not a wand, it's a weapon. This happened up in I believe it was Kentucky, and this is back in the late, I want to say it might have been the early 70s, 1970 maybe. There'd been reports of a frogman down by a creek, and I went down there and I saw him, and he had a gun, a little ray gun, and it looked like a sparkler. Like, you ever seen a child, they get a sparkler, they light it up, and it sparkles.
That's how these were described, that they saw in the frogmen.
Well, it looked kind of like one of the phasers we used on the Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise, because I used to have a phaser when I was on the Enterprise, but it was a little different looking. It was a little bit smaller for his hand because the creature's hand was webbed, and but it sparkled. Now the ones on the Enterprise never sparkled. They just shoot a beam out, but this one sparkled, and it was a weapon. And but he saw me, and he took his gun, and he fired at me. He missed, and then he ran. He jumped into the water and was gone. But he was about 4 foot tall. I say weigh maybe about 85 pounds, maybe 70, 85 pounds.
That's exactly how they were described, Jimmy, by other
Yeah,
people.
yeah. I've encountered one up in Kentucky on a creek bank.
Jimmy, what do you think there could have been a connection to Montauk with these frogs or these type of critters? I was going to say creatures and
Yeah,
critters.
yeah. Let me back up here. I'm going to tell you a story. I've never have covered the Amityville horror very well. I was supposed to do that with Misa Johnson. I was going to do the Amityville horror with her and James Rink, and then I want to say Misha got sick, and James and me got bogged down doing something else. But I'm going to go. I'm going to Butch. Well, not Butch. I call him Butch. Ronald DeFrey. Now, Ronald DeFrey is he's the one that the Amityville horror, where all the family got shot while they were
Yes.
in their beds,
Which was in Montauk, by the way. Isn't it like we passed by where that house was when we went to Camp Hero and we stayed at Montauk, Jimmy.
Yeah, well,
It's there.
Ronald, I knew Ronald. Me and him were good friends. He was a Montauk boy. A lot of people didn't know that. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And now Dawn was a Montauk girl. I have never. So I want to do a show on the Montauk girls. I've got a lot of people, a lot of females, are talking about time travel and all types of strange things happening to them. And the only way that I can do it is to do a show on the Amityville horror. But what I'm trying to say is Butch, well, Ronald, I call him Butch. That's what he liked being called around Montauk. Uh, Butch called the base one day, says, look, we've got some kind of a creature that's looking in the house. So we went down to his house. It had been snowing that day. And I went into the kitchen. The kitchen's in the back of the house. And sat down at the table, and I was talking with Butch. And he said, well, the creature came up to the window, and we saw the eyes of the creature. So when you're watching the movie about the creature, the Amityville creature. But anyway, I went out in the backyard, and sure enough, I'm seeing three-toed footprints. Whatever the creature was, it had three toes to it. And you could see where it was standing around by the window. And then it turned around, it went back, it walked back towards the boathouse. And got into the canal there. Well, comes summertime, and down at Lake Montauk. Now, Lake Montauk a lot of people don't know this, but if you watch the movie Jaws 1, where the police chief is, and it's the 4th of July, and he's got to go down to the marina, and there's a lot of tourists coming in. Well, the Jaws movie was filmed at Lake Montauk.
That's where the creature is, isn't it, Jimmy? I actually was told to not stick my toes in that water, or the Montauk monster would get me.
Well, I told James that, but what happened was we had a Montauk boy that drowned in that lake, and about a couple of weeks later, we had another boy drown. We had about 3 guys. I think it was 3 or either 4 had drowned within like 4 months. All right, so we're seeing a pattern. See, the first couple of them, we thought, well, maybe it was drug related, or maybe, maybe somebody was killing them. But what got things rolling was one of the boys had a Rolex watch on, and this Rolex watch was very important because you could turn the dial on it and you could teleport. You ever watch the movie They Live with Randy Pittman in it? Yeah,
I reference it quite often, actually. Yes.
Well,
Rowdy Rod Piper.
Well, they sent me down to the lake to get the watch. So I got the scuba gear, and I'm experiencing that. Okay, I'm not the type of guy that sees a scuba tank and puts it on and don't know what's going on. I'm qualified in that. So went down there, and I've got my gear on. I went off into the water, and I'm down there, and after a little while I see the watch, and I grabbed it. And as I was coming up with the watch, I know that when someone grabs you, you can feel their hand on you. You know what I mean? I could feel hands grabbing by both my ankles.
Oh gosh!
And it pulled me down. It was trying to drown me, and I was fighting. I was fighting for my life. I was being drowned. I was going to be victim number 5. And what happened was I had a light, and I turned the light on, and apparently the bright light might have blinded the creature. That's the only explanation I could think of. Okay, because the light, I had a loop. When I had the floodlight, it's got a little loop that you put on your wrist. If you let go of it, it's still attached to you, because it's a little cord that wraps around your wrist, and you hold the light as you search the bottom of whatever you're doing down there. So I think I blinded the creature, but I broke loose, and one of the other guys from Montauk had a pike pole, and he threw it. He ran, he grabbed it, and he stuck it in the water, and I grabbed it, and he pulled me out. And it was like I said, he got me out of the water, and see, it had tore the hose off my air tank. So I was, I couldn't get air because my hose was tore off my air tank, but it was trying to drown me. Well, couple of years pass, and some researchers down there, and they get a picture of a creature sitting on a rock. And I'm thinking that was the same creatures using the canals, like I said, where the phrase used to live, that the old boathouse back there, it goes out to sea, but it's using the that canal back there coming in from the sea. And apparently, um, Montauk Lake ain't but about 17 foot deep. It's not deep, but the highest death rate, the highest drownings in the United States, and you can do a Google search on it, but the highest drownings of any lake in the United States is Montauk Lake. More people have drowned in more people have drowned in Montauk Lake than any lake in the United States. There's statistical figures on it.
Jimmy, there's also a lake out in Nevada called Pyramid Lake.
And, I know about that one.
And Pyramid Lake has a high rate of drownings, and it's usually Caucasian men, by the way. But they are said to be pulled down by, the legend is, because you are of Paiute background yourself, Jimmy, right? And
yes.
And they talk about how a spiteful mermaid lives in that lake, but it grabs people by their feet and pulls them down, along with the water babies as well. And so many people bodies end up in Lake Tahoe because they have these underground aquifers or some kind of connection between Lake Tahoe and Pyramid Lake, and where bodies are like surfacing in the other lake. Like somebody will drown in Lake Tahoe and they'll end up in Pyramid, and they'll drown in Pyramid, end up in Lake Tahoe. It's really weird.
Well, I got a good one for you.
Okay.
A Cessna plane went down in one lake and it came up in another lake.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah. We had a report, and it came up in Pyramid Lake. It crashed in one lake and came up in another lake. Came up in Pyramid Lake because people saw it crash. Yeah. It just, what I mean? How does, you're in a desert? I mean, how do you crash a Cessna plane in one lake, but it floats up in another lake? You know what I mean?
Same as the bodies, though, I guess.
Yeah, but getting back to those reports of those creatures in those lakes, I've investigated it. There have been creatures that migrate in and out of those lakes. I'm thinking they go in during the night and they stay for a while. And then whenever the fish or resources are exhausted, they move on to another lake, Most likely some type of extraterrestrial that is skipping around.
Could there be portals, Jimmy? Some kind of portal underneath the water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. We had a submarine that back in the Thresher, I believe the name of the submarine was, or either Stingray. I forget which one it was. One came up missing that they never found. But what was going on out by Malibu? There's a underground cavern, and you can get that submarine in it and damn near go all the way up underneath California, and come up damn near to Nevada. Well, not in Nevada, but close to Nevada.
There's submarine bases in Nevada, Jimmy.
No. What I'm saying.
No.
Yeah. There is. But what I'm trying to say is the natural cavern, not the man-made, but the natural caverns. You have all the earthquakes. Okay, it's open up caverns up underneath Nevada, not Las Vegas, but Nevada, Long Beach in particular. All right, these underground caverns that's been opened up, we could get in a submarine, and we've traveled damn near to Nevada. Now, I believe they have been boring it with a boring machine, but I do know we could go from the Pacific Ocean damn near to the Nevada line with the natural caverns. Because I've been
Wow.
in the submarine. Yeah, I've been in the submarine. It's
Oh,
really huh?
China Lake. I was going to bring this comment up. Surface Planet Radio says China Lake. I hear a lot about China Lake too, and
Yeah, yeah.
all these places are
I've
connected by sub. You can take a submarine to some of these places. I've heard. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I was at China Lake. Yeah, I've been knowing about that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
But like I said, when you start trying to tell people about this, they don't believe it, and so that's the reason I don't. Well,
You
I
can
don't
talk
have
about
any
it here.
reason.
We
Well,
believe
I
it.
don't have. Well, I don't have a reason to go out and try to tell people in the public because one, I'm not getting anything out of it. I mean, it's nothing new to me, you know. Um, it's nothing new to me.
Well, we talk about it a lot here on my channel, Jimmy, about the all the underground caverns and the even the submarine bases in the middle of the desert, which don't make any sense to us normies. Okay, to I'm not calling us normies, but to the normies, and it doesn't make any sense. But it helps to have friends who are whistleblowers and people who've worked in these bases and
I'm
worked
not
for
a
the boring
whistleblower.
companies. Not you. I'm talking about other people. I have
Yeah, yeah,
other people who've been on my shows who are whistleblowers.
yeah.
And so we have people that have come on just to tell their experiences, and so there's a pattern. Okay, there's a pattern of I believe this. I do believe the testimony. Okay, from people who come
Well,
on my shows.
well, when I was riding the boat with Oscar Snyder, Captain Snyder, the U-boat, do
Uh-huh.
you know where we would go to in the U-boat?
Where?
Well, up underneath Montauk, there's a
Hmm.
submarine base. I
Oh,
could, yeah, you have to go out in the Atlantic, but I can
mhm.
come up underneath Long Island, and under Long Island, there's a submarine base underneath Montauk.
I would not doubt that. Well, there's also
And
Plum Island and Brookhaven Lambs is right there too. I don't know how long they've been there, but compared to Montauk.
well, I've been to Brookhaven. Now, Preston Nichols used to work at Brookhaven. He had an office down there. Now, a lot of people say they keep talking about Montauk girls. That was the Fort Tilden girls going to Brookhaven. And then from Brookhaven, they'll drive them by van to Camp Hero and they do the time jump. The girls never did stay at Camp Hero. We have a lot of women that are going around talking that they're Montauk, and that is so it's so backwards. You know what I mean? Those women was housed at Brookhaven, and they drove them by van to Camp Hero. They never were Camp Hero. They're Fort Tilden. They're Fort Tilden. They come from Fort Tilden,
Which is not very
Kentucky.
far from there.
What's the other side of Long Island? You
Hmm.
say, but see,
Long Island.
I haven't done a show on the Fort Tilden. Well, I guess we could just start calling Camp Hero girls, but they're actually a Fort Tilden girls. So we have females that run around, and they're calling themselves Montauk girls. The only time they're considered Montauk is when the Camp Hero boys went down to Fort Tilden, and psychologically, you have to have personalities that, don't conflict with one another. So they're very well screened. And when the Fort Tilden girl is matched with a Montauk boy, then she's considered a Montauk girl herself. It's kind of like you're from Camp Hero, but you're going to go down to Fort Tilden and pick your date up. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
when you pick your date up, she's Montauk at that point. She's trying for counter espionage. Okay, that's what those girls were trained as.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing just the very opposite. I'm seeing girls that are total wrecks. They can't. These women are high IQ. Their beauty, they're picked for their beauty, and they're picked for their high IQ. Just cause you might be pretty, it don't cut it. You got to be high IQ'd and pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, because
It's quite
the
the resume
women
there.
we like presidential models, and
Presidential.
I'm presidential,
Oh man.
and our females are beauty queens, and they're strictly high IQ'd, and they're trained in all sorts of stuff. They're not I mean, they're highly trained. Um, I've got guys. See, that was a problem. James meant well, and James Rink was a good-hearted person, and anybody could go up to James and say, "Well, I was doing this and that and that and this." James would listen to them, and some were telling the truth. There are people in his organization that did do time travel. I've already confirmed it, but quite a few of them have not. And see, there's one issue here. I can take them to Area 51, stick their arm underneath a barcode scanner, and it'll tell me who is the real Montauk boy and who is the real Montauk girl.
Hey, Jimmy's got the tea tonight. I like that.
That's right. That's right.
Interesting.
So
So
the
they're
people that are
chipped. They're basically chipped too.
the people that are inside the super soldiers program, so that James Rink, gathers together. There are some that are time travelers, but I would say about 40% of them are not.
Huh.
40% of the people in the super soldiers are not. Maybe between 35 to 40%
Mm-hmm.
are, and I'm not saying they're lying. They may be, some mental issues involved in it. People have got brain fog and what have you. But the vast majority of them have had paranormal experiences. I will say that for James, but it's flawed. Like any organization, it's going to have some flaws in it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of those girls that are claiming to be, to be Montauk, or they're telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some of the boys, but not all of them.
Oh my goodness. Melissa, I actually met you at the Super Soldier Activation Conference. It was James's conference just recently. And there are a lot of, the testimonies that were given out there were fantastic and stuff. What is your opinion on this?
To me, I once again, I listen to everybody.
Me too.
And so it's, do I go by certain feelings and senses of people? Yes. But for the most part, like, I do believe what most people are saying. For the most part, from where they're coming from. There's the odd one where I would question certain things. I'll say that. I won't name any names, but for the most part, I do. Yeah. But there's I won't say any names, but
of course, no, don't drop names. No, but Jimmy is spilling the tea though. I appreciate Jimmy. Jimmy, you're always so candid. Yeah, I love how candid Jimmy is.
It's important to be candid. To me, I'm more like that too. Like if I was coming to say just oops, that came out. Yes, it did. So yeah.
Look. I want to say this. The Montauk boys were bred for violence. Okay, they're the closest thing to juvenile delinquents that you can get. They've been in jail, reform schools, you name it. In fact, the prison where the movie, the Shawshank Redemption, was filmed at. You remember, you know that movie with
Yes, wonderful movie.
okay, that used to be a boys' reform school at one time before it was a prison. Okay, some of the Montauk boys were sent to the Shawshank Reform School before it was made into a prison. So when what I'm trying to say is this: you got guys that are down there that have that's wandered in to Super Soldiers Talk, you know, talking about they're sexually like male prostitutes, you know, people that are bisexual and such. Now, Preston Nichols did molest some of those boys. When I was at Camp Hero, every kid down there had a boot knife or some type of weapon on them because they were used to reform schools. Okay, so Preston didn't screw around with any of the Montauk boys when I was there because we were very violent. It was only after we were all sent off to Vietnam and Montauk closed down briefly. And when it was closed down, a couple of years after it was closed down, Air Force Colonel came to Preston and talked to Preston, asked him, he said, "Do you think you can get the tower back up running?" Preston said, "Yes." And Preston said, if I get it running, I want control of it. So the colonel, the Air Force colonel, from what I understand of it, said, "Okay." So Preston was down there along with Al Bilick. Al Bilick was a company man. And Al Bilick knew that Preston was molesting those young boys down there. So we have two different types of Montauk boys. We have the Montauk boys from the Vietnam era back. And then you have this group of boys that came in after Vietnam. After Vietnam was over, there's no war. And Preston was down there running it. Okay. So the ones that were down there was just basically being molested by Preston. Those boys were not trained to go to war. There's no war. I was trained out to go to war. Okay. So only a very few. Now, there's one down there, I'm not going to mention his name. He admits that, Preston molested him. All right. He's the only one I recognize. That's only one. I don't recognize any of the other ones. And I would say that the vast majority of them are lying. I've only found one since I left when Preston was there running it that's done a time jump. The rest of the boys are just male prostitutes. They didn't,
Unwilling ones, I would assume.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
they were just male lovers. That's all what they were. I've only met one, and I don't want to give his name out. I have to talk to him first. But when you start, we've got, and I'm not going to name her name. We got people going around forming Montauk survivor groups and they're talking about all this and that. When you go to war, you have a tendency not to talk. These people are talking about all their personal ailments, all their personal lives. Who gives a damn? You know, that's not a Montauk boy. Okay? A Montauk boy is tough. Now, going back to the Fort Tilden girls, I've seen a lot of females going around talking about time travel and space travel. Now, the females are used for two things. They're used in communications and they're used in navigation. Okay, they can run the computers, okay? That frees the men up to get on and off the craft to go explore. All right. So you got to remember they pick them for their beauty and their intelligence. There's very few females there are some, but I would say 60% of them don't cut it.
Oh my goodness.
40% do. I would say around about 40% of the females do cut it in the super space program.
Jimmy, what do you think about it's much more, I want to say pop culture, which is a terrible way to put this, but way more popular now to discuss things like the Montauk Project, because we've had this brand new season of this show called Stranger Things just came out, and it was actually based off the Montauk Project. They just released the last episodes last night. I'm actually going to be doing a show with Sherry Divban and Tyler Koala next week, y'all. We're going to talk about it over on Sherry's channel. But it's bringing it to the collective consciousness now, to all the masses. Okay, people are just, a lot of what I call normies are just learning about the Montauk Project. And what do you think about that? Why is there a shift right now? Do you have any kind of explanation? Like, what is your theory as to why there's such a shift universally with the collective consciousness on learning about these things?
Well, you have to remember when Preston and Al Bilick did their interviews, they didn't have the internet. You know, they had VCR cameras, you know what I mean? And they went to conferences. Not everybody had a computer in their house. And by the time they weren't making any money. Al Bilick died penniless. I talked to a researcher, had to buy him a suit just so that he could go to a conference and talk. He didn't have any money. Okay? It's a sad thing, but he didn't have any money. And the money that Preston had is what he earned being a sound engineer. He worked for a movie company. Stephen the guy did Star Wars.
Spielberg, yeah.
Yeah, he worked with Steven Spielberg. All right. So by the time that they did all these tours, their age and everything, it was kind of like it did make an effect. It's kind of like throwing a rock in a pond. It did make a ripple. All right. And I think when James came along, and I have to give James Ring credit for something here. James used the internet. He used the podcast, and he went and he found Preston Nichols. He found Al Bilick. He eventually found me, and we all started talking. And from there, it just kept growing and growing. But he had already had Super Soldiers talk. And I will say one good thing about James Ring. I like James. And I am very sad that James, passed away. But what James did is what Al Bilick and Preston Nichols couldn't do. He did it with the computers. All right. Now, going back to Stranger Things and everything, the public knows, they're just not ready to accept it. You don't have any more free elections. All your elections, your presidents are picked. Okay? Your world leaders are picked. And eventually, people are going to start saying, hey, Jessica Jones, she's talking to this guy named Jimmy Paine, and we're watching this movie, Stranger Things. I wonder, there's something to it. See, it's like James threw the first stone in the pond, and there was a ripple. James is no longer here, so Jessica has thrown a stone into the pond, and there's another ripple coming up. If you keep throwing stones in the pond, you're going to keep getting ripples until people take notice. And that's what's occurring right now. Okay. No, I didn't go on the line. I didn't go on the circuit with Al Bilick or Preston because I saw the writing on the wall. And as I said earlier, Al Bilick, a researcher, had to buy him a suit just so that he could stand up in front of a conference, which is kind of sad, but he never made any money off of it. Now, Preston and him's, scheme, they was going to sell a device, like people use to hunt for ghosts and such, radio frequencies, devices,
Oh yeah,
stuff
K2
like,
meters and all that.
yeah. And we saw where that went. And with me, I don't need a group. I don't need Healing Soul survivors. If there's any time I needed somebody is when I came out of Vietnam. If you watch the first Rambo movie, where I go across the bridge and a cop arrests me, yeah, I couldn't hold a job when I got out of Vietnam, But when I looked up and I see myself on a movie screen, I started thinking, well, that's me. Why am I what do they do this to me? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I went to Vietnam and I came back. I could fly a helicopter, a gunship. I could, drive a tank. I couldn't even hold a job working at a car wash. But I healed myself, time heals you. And so I kind of reach out and I tell people, yeah, so you had a bad time, you don't need to go out and do it like Al Bilick and Preston did, You don't need to do that.
Well, Jimmy, I'm glad that you have spoken up and share your encounters with us, and share your story, and it connects a lot of dots for us, and that's what I am here to do, is to connect the dots.
Yes,
And
I felt that tonight too. Lots of connections and dots being, that was so cool.
Well,
absolutely.
the most happiest time of my life is when I was on the Enterprise. And, I commanded the Enterprise. James was just, he really wanted me to, take them on the Enterprise. I believe if I could have done it, I probably would have taken them on there. Um, but um, but James, he surrounded himself with these writers from Star Trek, and they were talking about all the new Star Trek movies. Well, I don't know anything about the new Star Trek movies. It's just the old Star Trek movies, the original Star Trek when I commanded it, and I guess they called themselves trying to catch me in a lie. But you know what? What really woke them all up is when I said, "Do you know how much money the how much money uh, the Star Trek Enterprise made?" I said it's 11.2 billion. And I said, at that convention when they put the sleeping gas in the building and they knocked all y'all out, all you writers out, and they pulled an 18-wheeler up, and the back of that 18-wheeler was a Montauk chair. And they zapped every one of those writers. And then they put them back into the chairs and they woke up and see, they thought they were going to get 3% of that $11 billion. That was a contract. They didn't get 3%. Each Star Trek writer would have got over $300 million, $330 million.
I think Jerry would have liked that. Jimmy, Jerry in the chat used to be a writer on the old Star Trek, and Jerry's in the chat pretty often. But Jerry says, but unpaid and unhired. Must have been a contractor. You didn't have a part in that, huh? I'm sorry, Jerry.
But when I saw that, how they screwed the writers out of $330 million.
Dang.
And yeah, and they tased them and the Montauk chair on that.
Wow.
They had it. Yeah. And they put them back in there, and now you look at them, and they pull up on the set, and their car be leaking antifreeze or dripping oil, and they say, "Well, could you park it across the street? We don't want oil or antifreeze on our lot." And and they don't have no use for them now because they got AI that can write the scenes for them. You know what I mean?
Oh, God, yes.
But
AI is the devil. I'm just kidding.
But what I'm getting at is that they got, when they were all writing their stories, they missed the best part, is that some of it was true, but they can't figure it out. The only one that can do that is me. I can go into old Star Trek movies and say, well, this and that happened, but that they lost the truth, and had they, like I said, that was a sight to behold, but I don't go to the Star Trek conventions, I keep to myself, but I like commanding the Enterprise. I really liked it.
Well,
I
Jimmy,
like my girlfriend too.
Who was your girlfriend?
I had quite a few Vulcan
Was she
girlfriends. Oh, she was special,
You had a werewolf girlfriend at one point.
Yeah, I had a werewolf girlfriend.
You have lived it up this lifetime, Jimmy.
Yeah, but like I said, when you really look for the truth, you can't find it because it's covered up so much, But I really miss Spock. I miss his brother, Sabak, I miss both of the Vulcans. I knew I gave Spock's mother a Venus flytrap when for a flower, when Spock died, and I liked her. But but I wish that things would have been different, you know. Maybe I will return one day, but I never could. I could never report to a politician. I'm a Navy guy. I'm an old Navy guy, you know. When I was out in the desert, out in Nevada, outer space is kind of my Navy. You know, that's kind of, you know, if I had to pick between the waters of Vietnam, the canals, the brown water Navy, or the Navy out in space, I believe I would pick the Star Trek Enterprise, because I've had so many bad experiences in the canals in Vietnam. But that was just one of them with the island of Dr. Moreau. I'm letting you know that it's true. I can't figure out which looper got a hold of, you know, the intelligence file and took a time jump back, and maybe 100 years ago, I guess somebody lived back there like that era. And, you know, you have the island of Dr. Moreau. Book's been out about 100 years. So apparently we have a looper that likes that timeline and brought the story back.
That's what I was going to ask you about too, because the H.G. Wells book was from the 1800s, 1896, I think. And I was wondering, I knew before I brought you on the show tonight, I was like, you know, Jimmy's a time traveler. There's the Montauk projects involved. Nothing's off the table at this point when it comes to, you know, something loopers. Is that what you called it? Loopers, time travelers, people that go back and they kind of change history.
Looper.
Okay.
Well, I've done it. Go back and put stuff in the library, you know. The Wreck of the Titan, that was a book wrote about 17, maybe 19 years before the Titanic. And we had a technician down at Area 51. He was reading a book, and the supervisor walked in one day. He said, "Hey, what you reading there, my man?" He says, "I'm reading a book about Wreck of the Titan." He said, "What's it about?" It's about a ship that hits an iceberg and it sinks. And the technician said, "Damn, you know, my granddaddy had a bunch of money in the White Star Line and it went bankrupt. We lost everything." And the supervisor said, he paused a moment. He says, "Can you get a inventory of what's on the Titanic?" Because they knew they could travel with money back then. Everybody traveled with money. And so he went and got a computer printout, you know, of what was in the cargo hold on the maiden voice, you know, the maiden voice of the Titanic, you know. And it had a bunch of stuff that was it was in the cargo hold, and a lot of money in the safe, you know. And hell, we was running low on money, so we did a time jump and we robbed the safes of the Titanic, you know. But actually, that's not the Titanic that sunk. That's the Olympic. The Olympic had been hit on its side by a Royal Navy submarine. It pierced the side of the ship, broke I-beam, and they, you know, riveted it back together. But the I-beam kept, you know, getting vibrated. The rivets kept knocking out of the I-beam from the motor vibration, you know. So they went ahead and changed stuff around, you know, the signs on the Olympic and Titanic, you know. See, one ship had red primer and one had black. And Titanic had red and the Olympic had black.
The windows are different too.
Well, there's a few more port windows, but they're pulling up the black primer. They can't explain it. Why ain't the red primer there, you know? But it's common knowledge in you know, over in London, you know, England, that, you know, they teach it in the schools that they tell the school kids, well, that wasn't the Titanic that sunk. That was Olympic.
Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
a lot of things that we have as like pinnacles of like our history books were like has something to do with some time travel and people going back in time and switching things up. And man, it is just mind blowing, Jimmy. I love this. We could talk all night. We could. I know, but it's getting late. I know for a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of us,
getting
it's getting
late.
late,
It is
right?
getting late.
This has been one of my favorite shows I've done with you. So we've all my shows are my favorite, Jimmy. Melissa, I'm so glad that you were here with us tonight.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for bringing me in again. This is so much
Of
fun. I
course.
enjoyed it.
Aren't these the
Well, we are.
best? I love having Jimmy on to
Yeah,
tell
bring
us
me
the
back
stuff.
anytime. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
please come
well,
back
we
anytime.
ought to do one next month. You know, if you want to do another one.
We can start doing these once a month at
Yeah.
least. Yeah.
How would you like to do? How would you like to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh God, I don't know. That one sounds risky. I don't know. What do you think? I don't
I
know.
can
What do
tell
you
you
think,
the real.
Melissa?
I don't know about that one either. Maybe. I
Scary.
don't know. Yep.
What is going on with that? Is that has something to do with Montauk or time travel or
No,
what?
no, no.
Okay.
We it was a bunch of cattle that kept being skinned,
Oh,
mutilated, and plus corpses were being, disturbed from the graves. We thought it was a UFO situation, but it wasn't. It turned out to be a, bunch of
Whoa.
cannibals. But
Cannibals. Oh yeah,
yeah,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I could tell you
Okay.
the true ending to Scarface, how he died.
Ooh, well, maybe
I can tell you.
we just don't tell us now. Let's hold off until we do a show on it.
No, I wouldn't want to tell it now, but I was just
Okay.
saying it breaks it. The reason I thought it would be good, it breaks the routine from all the space stuff and the animal stuff. The hybrid animals and such. It breaks. You can do too many hybrid animals, and we do too much
Yeah.
time travel.
I
But
like
that would
all
be
of
a good one.
that would be a good one. Listen, we'll plan on it. Okay. We'll plan on doing that one next. And so yes, thank you so much, Jimmy, for being here and for sharing everything with us tonight.
yes.
And yes, I was going to ask, well, Melissa, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody where they can find you and tell us about your organization and what you have going on.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, True Being. Once again, True Beings of Light, Intuitive Healing. I'm a spiritual channeler, intuitive healer, Reiki master, psychic medium, hypnotherapist. And I do come with a nursing background as well, an emergency. Gave that up in 2020, I think. But yeah, you can find me on my website, www.truebeings.light.com. And I have my membership, which I have out now, called the Intuitive Experience. I get together. I channel all my meditations, all the moon meditations, the celestial events, and meditation Monday and intuition practice nights. So I just love teaching as well. And everybody, we all have this innate using our intuition, and I just love sharing that. We all need to use this in our everyday lives for so many purposes. We have this innate. Actually, I call it a human trait. It's not a gift; it's a trait. We all have a pineal gland. We all have this. Yeah. So yeah, look, check me up. I do all my meditations. I channeled a message last night, actually, too, for New Year's. I got that out last night. I'm having issues with Facebook, though. It's not letting me share certain pages, but I shared it out mostly. But anyways, I love channeling, bringing through intel, whatever we can bring in, and I'd love to do more stuff. I'm sitting here tonight, actually, listening to something, and I thought, should I go in and see what comes up? I said, no, I'm too engaged. I got to watch this. So I would love to do something like that one day, too.
Oh yeah, we need to bring you on the remote viewing show one night too.
I would
That'd be
love
fun.
that.
I do remote viewing targets every Thursday night. I actually switched it up. We didn't do remote viewing tonight.
Okay,
yeah, every Thursday night we have a remote viewing show here on my channel.
Okay,
we sure do.
Invite me on.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it after the show. How about that?
Sounds great.
Well, and you're also you post a lot on Super Soldier Talk as well on Facebook, and you and James were also very good friends too. And so, yeah, please go over, you guys. I don't know why my StreamYard is only showing it for 10 seconds, but truebeings.light.com. Is that right?
Truebeings.light.com. Yep, my website. Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, Melissa, thank you again so much for being here tonight. I do appreciate you co-hosting with me.
Thank you. This is so much fun.
Of course. Thank you. And Jimmy, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, that's a good question, because now that James is not here, how do you feel about if somebody needs to get a hold of me, they just get a hold of you? Now I don't do one-on-one lectures. So if you're having a personal problem or you're doing some research, I don't do one-on-one. I just when I do something, it's like what I do tonight. Now I'm not affiliated with Jessica, but uh, if somebody wants to some organization, I am looking for a corporate sponsor. I'm looking for a corporate sponsor, and so if somebody is interested in sponsoring me, just get a hold of Jessica, and Jessica, you can just let me know, and I'll talk with them. But I just want to kind of point that out.
Wonderful. You guys can contact me if you need to get in touch with Jimmy, but no personal problems, y'all. Okay. And you got to have 5 fingers.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like that 5
If
fingers.
you contact Jimmy, you got to have 5 fingers, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
The sayer of the law.
Sayer of the law.
Sayer
That's
of the
right.
law, 5-finger man.
That's what Jerry said.
Yep.
Gotta have 5 fingers. That's how they used to. What I was told, the Native Americans would say, hold up their hand, and they would distinguish. They say, when they would do a greeting, to have
Yeah.
people show if they had 5
Yeah.
fingers on their hand because of the
Ow, or they
Nephilim.
go ow or now, or they would say something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because there were giants that had 6 fingers and stuff. They wanted to know if you had 5 or 6 fingers on your hand. Yeah, so I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Jimmy, thank you so much again for being here. Gosh, like I said, this has been one of my favorite shows we've done thus far. Okay. And wonderful information. We're going to have Jimmy back. We're going to come back next month, y'all. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here. Before we go tonight, I want to thank everybody who gave super stickers. I know I was trying to be quiet during the show so Jimmy could talk, but so I didn't say thank you during the show. But Leisha Fox, thank you so much. Margaret, thank you so much. Injaneb, thank you so much for the super sticker. Maureen and Gus, thank you for the super sticker. And also Elise Tanner, thank you so much for the super stickers. And for all your support, y'all. It means the world to me. And thank y'all for sticking with us for almost 3 hours tonight. We've gone. This is a long show. It was so good. We lost track of time. And so please come back and see me on Saturday night. I will be here on The Hunt. Y'all come see me 10 p.m. Eastern with another fantastic show for you guys. All right. Well, I guess everybody, please stay safe out there. This has been a wonderful, I guess we just learned all about Vietnam tonight. We learned about the war. We learned about the canal. We learned about the boats. We learned about the human-animal hybrid experiments. It connects some dots. I hope y'all enjoyed it. And we will see you guys back here on Saturday night. Y'all have a wonderful night. Please be safe out there. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Jimmy. Happy New Year, Melissa.
Happy New Year.
Here's to a wonderful 2026. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful night. And we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.